you get an insane amount of value every time you do a lift where you push it extra hard. When you bring it just a few degrees beyond what you normally do, because for one, it's gonna feel good and you're gonna definitely make gains from that lift because you did a good lift, but also it just opens your eyes to like, oh shit, okay, I can bring it, I can go this hard. And after you say I can go this hard, it'll turn into I should go this hard, you know? But the reverse is true too, right? If you have a shit lift and you basically just put yourself in your place by saying, oh, what the fuck is wrong with me right now? You know, I've had lifts like that, late, public gym, whatever. Like, it's just a self-realization of every time you get comfortable, you know? So I never want to take like my ability to totally kill it on a step-by-step basis for granted. Because every time I come to the gym, I'm basically being tested. Now it's like a self-imposed test, of course, on can I really get after it? And as long as every day I can, I get to go home feeling like a freaking winner. You gotta change it up, man, you know? Because the more you think you've found the answer, the less likely it is you're going to be to actually, you know, be influenced by any new ideas, because you're so like blinders on, like what you're doing is perfect, nothing else is going to help. That's not a constructive mindset, right? Be open to new ideas, you know, don't be so, I'm not saying one method is better than any other, but just don't get so attached to your own like preconceptions of working out that you completely neglect to listen to any good advice or tips, or even just like influences from seeing how other people work out. Because, you know, this isn't a battle of supremacy of styles and approaches, right? This is, as far as I'm concerned, with the bodybuilding, fitness, muscle, everything, it's kind of a team endeavor where we're all trying to get on the same page, or at least similar pages of what works. Because why are we coming to the gym, right? Obviously it's got its own physical benefits and like just mental, like it's good for you to move around and shit. But if we were to like computerize it, like task versus end goal, we're working out to make progress. So I think that's something we need to maybe join forces on a little more, right? Rather than this, you know, who's right and who's wrong. You know, let's praise what's right and then just at least question what's wrong. And, you know, who's to say some guy has his own weird approach, but for him it works? How are you going to tell him anything if it's actually legitimately working for him, especially if you're coming at him in like a friggin', you know, argumentative way, right? The last thing that's going to result in new ideas and better lifters and a better consensus on just working out in general is two meatheads who are clashing because he likes doing curls this way and he likes doing curls this way. Foolishness, right? Get your lifts in, make progress and chill. That's my finisher statement for this lift. That's not a bad idea to look at yourself posing if you're like, you know, concerned with your own kind of like self-perception of your progress. Because looking at yourself fully pumped, cool lighting, veiny, pre-workout, that's extra cool. You know what I'm saying? But that's temporary, right? That's just a, what would that be, right? You just took a damn, you know, invincibility star in Mario Kart. Right? You're extra fancy for a minute, right? But then you got to go back to normal. You know, but what I was kind of getting at was, you know, what's your highlight reel of the day, or of the last few weeks, or the last few months, you know, or of however long? Because when it comes to like seeing anybody who's getting some shit done, be it, you know, like social media character, bodybuilder guys, fitness dudes, you know, just anything, right? Car show kind of guys who love working on whatever, the ratio of cool shit that's like interesting and just fun to show off and like make videos about, or just like, you know, just be able to look at, that is about, I'd say maybe 2% seems a little low. Definitely less than 10% of the amount of like prep and just other related work that goes on that is not so fun and interesting. You know what I'm saying, right? For every insane set of squats, there is sitting around in front of a bowl of chicken and rice, or just doing 30 minutes of cardio. I mean, let's even be conservative and say I've only done, well, I mean, I've had stints where I wasn't doing my daily cardio, that's for sure. But I mean, even a year, let's say 1 year, which I mean, I've been doing it longer than that, but just 1 year of 30 minutes of cardio a day. So let's even just cut it down to 300. Let's just say 300 days out of 365. That's nearly, I think that's like 6 days a week-ish, maybe 5.5 technically. But either way, around 5 or 6 days a week at 30 minutes of cardio. Right, so 300 times half an hour, 150 hours straight of sitting on the bike pedaling over the course of just a year. That's not even counting the freaking like 2-month period earlier in prep when I was doing 2 hours a day. So even right then, that was like 120. Like in a 2-month period, I feel like I've, I mean, honestly, it's kind of sad to say, but in that 2-month period of doing 2 hours of cardio a day, that's more cardio than anyone's ever done in their life. Well, not anyone, but some people. You know what I'm saying? But that's not really, that's not cool. You're not going to make a TikTok edit out of sitting on the bike pedaling, right? That's just not really, but it's something that is important for the grand scheme of what I'm working toward. So, of course, I'm going to do it, right? And it's there's a certain kind of just understanding that it doesn't have to be the flashiest thing in the world, because it's just necessary, right? We're all looking at let me think here, right? I mean, it's cool to be the architect, like, oh, I designed this building, I designed the Empire State Building, look at this mock-up, oh, it's incredible, I did that. Not so glamorous to be the dude laying rebar and pouring concrete, right? Because it's slower, it's not as interesting, it's just, I don't want to say grunt work, because obviously there's a lot of prep involved, but it's just necessary small steps that scale towards something greater. You know what I'm saying? So if we're only watching, like if you're like me when I was looking up to all the Callum von Moger videos, or like who else was I watching? Honestly, I wasn't really a die-hard bodybuilding fan until I really got into it. But I mean, I was watching a lot of like Rich Piana sort of stuff. But insert whoever you were looking up to when they're showing their coolest stuff, and just deadlift compilations, and just like crazy poses when they're extra lean. I mean, that's not them 24/7, right? I mean, don't forget, every time some dude finishes a crazy ass workout or bodybuilding show or just anything, the guy's gonna go home, chill, play on his phone, just like you are. And so it's what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't have to be this 24-hour, like, always on, just cool shit, fun all the time, extra, like, in this, in kind of in relation to the cooler part of like coming in, hitting a serious pose, just looking nuts, maybe going into competitions, anything else like that, PRs. There's just what you might call chores that just go along with it, that even though they're not as cool, they're still necessary. So I guess I'm trying to put more emphasis on the things that aren't really so just interesting and cool, and because they kind of they're just necessary for the sake of making a certain level of progress in whatever other kind of thing you're doing, right? So that's my sort of thing. Even if I'm just doing 30 minutes in the scheme of my whole working out, 1 day of cardio will change nothing, right? If I went back over the course of everything and I skipped 1 day of cardio, or 1 lift, or even like 1 week of cardio, it's not going to change anything, right? But it's the fact that there's been so many in a row that now it's kind of just scaled up to where it is, right? So don't get discouraged, and just don't prioritize the cool shit. Everybody's always oh man, I want to start posting, I want to start making whatever, I want to start hitting PRs. How many working strength building sets does it take to reach a 315 bench? How many workouts, how many years does it take to get to a 4-plate squat for like 5 or 6 reps? That's not the fun part, right? But if you can at least get yourself to a point where you're not being like turned off or just discouraged by the fact that it's a lot before you get to the cool stuff, then you're good. My thing is, I've always been like, I've almost got I don't want to say imposter. No, that's not the right word I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of, like, I feel a little bit hypocritical when I say that sometimes, because for me, like, the workouts just coming in, like, that's the fun part, you know? So everything else that happens afterward, it's, you know, it's just, I don't want to say a byproduct, but it's just a nature of course, you know? So if you know somebody who loves working out, guess what? The guy's probably going to look like it, at least after a certain period of, you know, gaining experience and making real ass freaking gains, you know? So my whole thing, and this is like half just how it is, but it's definitely how I like that it is because, you know, the grind aspect of working out, where we're talking like, you know, legs, failure, sweating, cardio, diet, food, everything, like, that's the fun part, you know? So then the results are even more fun because they're like, like, it just kind of happens, you know? You're going on a freaking stroll and you happen to find $20 on the sidewalk, right? That might not be the best kind of way to put it, but that's, I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. I find it very interesting that it's such a craze. And I know I've been saying this forever. I will get over this whole training ideology, you know, BS phase. But it's I see it so much I can't stop talking about it. But as much as I see people trying to make sure they optimize every tiny little bit of their training and their workouts and, you know, full body every other day and fatigue and just, I don't hear cardio getting thrown around at all. Like, honestly, I have never, I've never